The modern age is an age of, well, modern things, modern thought, modern products, modern war. But it is also a time when people long for times past. And in the harvest of 1922, there is one man in particular who is doing just that. Benito Mussolini is obsessed with all things Roman, and he has decided to cross the Rubicon, retake the Eternal City, and remake the Roman Empire. This is Between Two Wars Season 2, a chronological summary of the interwar years, where we cover the zeitgeist, the culture, the technology, the art, the sports, and much more in the era when, for better or for worse, humanity ushered in modern times. I'm Indy Neidell. There is a lot going on this season. The Greco-Turkish War has finally ended after 3 years of fighting and brutal ethnic cleansing on both sides. The Turkish national movement is the victorious party, and they now also move to abolish the Ottoman Sultanate within their own land, making the Ottoman Empire a fact of history. And then across Turkey's northeastern border, the Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian, and Transcaucasian Soviet republics officially unify to form the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. But the new superstate's internal situation is fragile. Leader Vladimir Lenin seems near death, and a power struggle for who should succeed him is emerging. And finally, still suffering from rampant hyperinflation, Germany has been regularly defaulting on its reparations obligations to the Allied powers, signaling possible diplomatic crisis throughout Europe. This series tries to cut through all these headlines and uncover what the era's zeitgeist is and who represented it. And in the final months of 1922, there can only be one man who does. It is Benito Mussolini, and when, on October 31st, he is made Prime Minister of Italy by King Victor Emmanuel III, he is the world's first fascist leader. Before 1914, he was one of Italy's most prominent socialists, organizing protests and editing newspapers in the hope of kickstarting international revolution. But the Great War changed all that. He first started to see Italian intervention as necessary for achieving liberty, and from there, abandoned left-wing ideals altogether. When Italy declared war in May 1915, he wrote in his pro-war newspaper Il Popolo d'Italia, "From today onward, we are all Italians and nothing but Italians. Now that steel has met steel, one single cry comes from our hearts: Viva l'Italia!" Since the Great War ended, he has been positioning himself as the man who has the solution to the post-war chaos raging in Italy. That solution is fascism, and he has been gathering all the various groups associated with it under one banner, forming the Italian Fascists of Combat in March 1919, and then the National Fascist Party in November 1921, which has rapidly taken over most of northern and central Italy, becoming nearly as powerful as the government itself. Once he decides he wants power, Mussolini stages his march on Rome this October, a supposed mass march on the capital to demand that he be given the premiership. Much of this is stage-managed pomp. Mussolini actually gets the train to Rome, and only after being summoned by the king. But symbolically, it is a huge moment. Modern Rome has traditionally been a stronghold of liberalism, representative of all the democratic decadence the fascists despise. But it was also once at the very center of the civilized world, and by retaking it, Mussolini has assured it a new future while also placing himself in a long line of leaders stretching as far back as Julius Caesar. That mixture of aspiration and history is a hallmark of Mussolini's ideology, because while much of it is decidedly modern in its outlook, its myths are built on the ancient past. Many have claimed to be heirs to the classical Roman Empire. The Byzantine Empire, well, the Eastern Roman Empire, was its direct successor until the late Middle Ages. And when they were defeated by Mehmed the Conqueror and his Ottoman Empire, he declared himself Caesar of the Romans. In Western and in Central Europe, the Holy Roman Empire saw itself as the successor of classical Rome right up until its dissolution in 1806. Further afield, the Russian czars of the early modern period like to think they were building a third Rome. And I could probably dedicate a whole series to how many people saw places like Britain, France, America, and more as Rome's spiritual successors. No, don't ask me to. I said it could do it. I didn't say I will do it. Could, right? In the 19th century, Italian nationalists likewise staked their own claim, using a simple fact of geography to legitimize a unified and modern Italy. In 1870, the new national government took control of Rome away from the Papal States, made it the nation's capital, and began excavating ancient Roman buildings and building new architectural projects in the Roman style. But Mussolini's taken all of this even further. Earlier this year, on April 21st, the supposed anniversary of Rome's founding, Mussolini proclaimed in a speech, "Rome is our starting point and reference. It is our symbol, or, if you will, our myth. We dream about the Roman Italy, that is, the wise and strong, disciplined and imperial Italy. Much of what was the immortal spirit of Rome is reborn in fascism. The lictor is Roman. Our organization of combat is Roman. Our pride and our courage are Roman. Civis Romanus sum." In case your Latin is a bit rusty, this means, I am a Roman citizen, a boast that was supposed to guarantee safety to a traveling Roman in ancient times. The fascist symbology is inherently tied to its interpretation of Roman history. Most obviously is their namesake and logo, the fasces, which was a bundle of wooden rods bound around an axe head that was carried by an attendant walking ahead of Roman officials. The more powerful the official, the more attendants they had. Mussolini has also declared that April 21st should be an official fascist holiday and ensured that the mythical Roman salute that was actually created in the 19th century, taken from a painting, has entered the fascist repertoire. Now that he is in power, he can begin infusing ancient Rome into fascist Italy in earnest. Roman imagery will drape state addresses, and an aggressive foreign policy will look to resurrect the days of imperial might. Rome isn't the only ancient civilization to occupy Mussolini's mind. See, after rumors begin spreading of a pharaoh's curse in just a few months, he will order an Egyptian mummy that he's been given as a gift to be removed from his residence. And those rumors are thanks to another ancient civilization making headlines this season. On November 29th, the tomb of Tutankhamun is opened, King Tut himself. Tutankhamun was a boy pharaoh of Egypt during the mid-14th century BC, who died at only around 19 years old. His dynasty had started a new tradition of burying their pharaohs in a valley near Thebes, appropriately named the Valley of the Kings, and this would continue for around 300 years after Tutankhamun was buried there. Now, by 1914, it was generally accepted that all the royal tombs in the valley had been discovered. American lawyer Theodore Davis had been sponsoring digs there since the turn of the century, which led to the discovery of about 30 tombs overall, including what he believed to be Tutankhamun's tomb after a cache of embalming equipment was found. This last discovery led Davis to declare the Valley of Kings was officially exhausted. But that doesn't stop other people from poring over it. George Herbert, Earl of Carnarvon, is a British aristocrat with a keen interest in Egyptology, and he has been funding the work of archaeologist Howard Carter since 1915. By 1922, however, Carnarvon is pretty frustrated with Carter's lack of findings and has told him he has only one more year of funding. With this remaining time, Carter decides to retrace his steps over a part of the valley he previously abandoned. While there, one of the water boys on the crew trips over a stone, accidentally discovering the real tomb of King Tut. The tomb is officially opened on November 29th and is the most intact Egyptian tomb found to date. More than 5,000 artifacts, including furniture, statues, clothes, and over 100 walking sticks, are found in the outer chambers of the tomb, or as Carter himself describes it, "As my eyes grew accustomed to the light, details of the room within emerged slowly from the mist. Strange animals, statues, and gold. Everywhere the glint of gold." The burial chamber itself will not be reached until February next year, but the global press has already kickstarted a fascination with all things Egyptian. Soon everything from movies to books to songs will be produced on this topic, and there will even be rumors of a curse of the pharaoh. But more on that when it happens. Beyond historical obsessions, the final months of 1922 are also full of iconic firsts in the world of entertainment. Here is a selection. Virtually since the beginning of films, inventors have been trying to work out ways of making them 3D. And in December, New Yorkers witnessed one of the best cracks at it so far with the showing of The Man from Mars at the Selwyn Theater. The newly invented TeleView system is used to create a 3D effect. Developed by Lawrence Hammond, who will later be famous for Hammond organs, the TeleView system projects 2 reels of film onto the screen to create a double image. On the armrest of each theater seat is a viewing device that the audience member can look through, and it's in sync with the projectors, so the left and right eyes each only see one of the 2 reels. It is incredibly advanced technology, but it's also awkward, and it's treated as little more than a novelty item. The film itself is also pretty bad, so TeleView will never make it to the mainstream. Other entertainment debuts will have a much more far-reaching impact, however. In October, the D.W. Griffiths directed One Exciting Night is released in America, and it is one of the first big murder mysteries to appear on film. The same month, what will be the highest-grossing film this year in America is released, Douglas Fairbanks in Robin Hood. This has a production budget of about $1 million, one of the biggest so far, and it is a smashing success. And finally, in the UK, the British Broadcasting Company, BBC, is established in October, puts out its first broadcast in November, and appoints its first general manager, John Reith, in December. At this point, it is a private company, although it does hold the single broadcasting license issued by the government. And that brings us to the end of 1922. In December, American President Warren G. Harding delivers his annual State of the Union address to Congress. It is 4 years since the World War ended, but the inevitable readjustment of the social and economic order is not more than barely begun. There is no acceptance of pre-war conditions anywhere in the world. It is no figure of speech to say we have come to the test of our civilization. The world has been is today passing through a great crisis. The extent of this crisis and what should be done about it is a matter of interpretation. But Harding is right about one thing. The world now is markedly different from the one before the Great War. In the 4 years since it ended, left-wing, right-wing, nationalist revolutions have swept the globe. Women have gained political power, art has been redefined, and mass culture is spreading. Just like Caesar's Rome and Tutankhamun's Egypt, the pre-war world is now ancient history. If you would like to learn about a failed far-right takeover from the interwar years, check out our Season 1 episode on the French 6th of February crisis right here. And also remember, if you want ties, and more ties, you can find me and find the ties at Indy's Tie Barn, where I auction off some of these lovely decorative pieces of cloth that I wear all the time. And last, but by no means least, our TimeGhost Army Member of the Week is Matthew Bamford. It is the Army that is responsible for financing everything we do here. So be like Matthew and join the TimeGhost Army at patreon.com or timeghost.tv. And thinking of Mussolini's ambitions and his ultimate fate, words by the Roman lyricist Horace come to mind. A shoe that is too large is apt to trip one, and when too small, to pinch the feet. So it is with those whose fortune does not suit them. Salute.